Chapter 6. The First Rescue. We stayed in the warehouse for 3 hours. Maybe longer. I couldn't tell anymore because time felt wrong, stretched thin like taffy, and every sound outside made my heart jump into my throat. Atticus sat against the far wall with his eyes closed, but I knew he wasn't sleeping. His breathing was too controlled, too measured, like he was listening to everything at once. Lysandra paced near the door. Torrin stood guard by the window, his massive frame blocking most of the light that filtered through the cracks in the boards. Naira sat next to me on the concrete floor, her knees pulled up to her chest. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I looked at her. "No." She nodded like that was the answer she'd expected. "None of us are. How long have you been doing this? Running?" She tilted her head, thinking. 2 years. Maybe 3. It's hard to keep track when you're always moving. Do you ever get used to it? No. She said it simply, without hesitation. You just get better at pretending you are. I didn't know what to say to that. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the town beyond the walls. Cars passing. Voices in the distance. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Except nothing felt safe anymore. "We need to move," Atticus said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. He stood and brushed dust off his jeans. "They'll have search teams combing the area by now. We can't stay here." "Where do we go?" Lysandra asked. "Somewhere they won't think to look." He glanced at me. "Somewhere public." "That's insane," Torrin said. "They're looking for him. You want to put him in the middle of a crowd?" "I want to hide him in plain sight." Atticus moved to the door and peered through a crack. "They're expecting us to run. To hide in the woods or an abandoned building. They won't expect us to walk into town. And if they see us? Then we deal with it." Lysandra shook her head. "This is a terrible idea. You have a better one?" She didn't answer. "Then we move." Atticus looked at me. "Stay close. Don't talk to anyone. And whatever you do, don't shift." "I don't know how to control it," I said. "Then don't try." We left through a side door that opened onto an alley I didn't recognize. The sun was setting and the sky was streaked with orange and purple, beautiful in a way that felt wrong given everything that had happened. Atticus led the way with Torrin bringing up the rear. Lysandra and Naira walked on either side of me like bodyguards, which I guess they were. My hands were shaking. I shoved them in my pockets and tried to focus on walking, on putting one foot in front of the other, on not thinking about the heat that was still coiled in my chest waiting to explode. We walked for maybe 10 minutes before we reached Main Street. It was busier than I expected. People were out, walking dogs, carrying groceries, talking on their phones. Normal people doing normal things. I felt like an alien. "Act natural," Atticus said quietly. I didn't know how to act natural anymore. We walked past a coffee shop, a bookstore, a hardware store with a display of chainsaws in the window. Everything looked so ordinary, so mundane, and I couldn't reconcile it with what I'd just been through. With what I was. "There," Lysandra said, nodding toward a diner across the street. "We can wait there until dark." Atticus hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. But we stay near the exit." We crossed the street and went inside. The diner was warm and smelled like coffee and grease and something sweet I couldn't identify. There were maybe a dozen people scattered across the booths and tables, most of them older, most of them ignoring us. We took a booth in the back corner. I sat facing the door because I couldn't stand having my back to it. Atticus sat across from me with Lysandra beside him. Torrin and Naira took the booth behind us. A waitress came over, middle-aged with tired eyes and a name tag that said Carol. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Coffee," Atticus said. "Black." "Same," Lysandra said. Carol looked at me. "And you, Han?" "Water," I said. My voice came out hoarse. She nodded and walked away. I stared at the table, at the scratches in the laminate, at the ring stains from old coffee cups. "You need to eat something," Lysandra said. "I'm not hungry." "You need to eat anyway." I didn't argue. When Carol came back with our drinks, Lysandra ordered a burger and fries for me. I didn't protest. We sat in silence, waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. That's when I saw her. Maria Solis. She was sitting 3 booths away, alone, with a book open in front of her and a cup of tea steaming beside it. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun and she was wearing the same leather jacket she'd had on at school. She looked up and our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she smiled, just slightly, and went back to her book. "You know her?" Atticus asked quietly. "From school," I said. "She's in my English class." "Does she know?" "Know what?" "What you are." I thought about the way she'd looked at me in the hallway. The way she'd said I should be careful who I told. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe." Atticus's jaw tightened. "Stay away from her." "Why?" "Because the more people who know about you, the more danger they're in." I looked at Maria again. She was turning a page, completely absorbed in whatever she was reading. She looked so normal, so safe. And I wanted that. God, I wanted that so badly it hurt. "Elijah," Atticus said, his voice sharp. I'm serious. Stay away from her. I heard you. But I didn't look away. The food came and I ate without tasting it. My mind was somewhere else, spinning in circles, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. Dragons, shifters, hunters. It was too much. We should move soon, Lysandra said, checking her watch. It's almost dark. Atticus nodded. Give it another 20 minutes. Let the streets clear out. I pushed my plate away, half the burger still uneaten. That's when Mireia stood up. She gathered her book and her bag and walked toward the door, passing our booth without looking at us. But as she passed, she dropped something. A folded piece of paper. It landed on the floor next to my foot. I stared at it. Don't, Atticus said, but I was already reaching for it. I picked it up and unfolded it under the table. The handwriting was neat and precise. They're watching the north entrance. Use the back door. Be careful. I looked up, but Mireia was already gone. What does it say? Lysandra asked. I handed her the note. She read it, then passed it to Atticus. His expression darkened. How does she know they're watching? I don't know. This could be a trap. Or she's trying to help. Why would she help you? I didn't have an answer for that. Atticus crumpled the note and shoved it in his pocket. We're leaving. Now. What about the back door? I asked. We're not using it, but she said. I don't care what she said. He stood, dropping cash on the table. We're going out the front. That's stupid, I said. It's cautious. It's paranoid. His golden eyes locked onto mine. You want to trust someone you barely know? Someone who might be working with the hunters? She's not working with them. You don't know that. Neither do you. We stared at each other. Lysandra cleared her throat. We need to decide. Now. Atticus broke eye contact first. Fine. We'll check the back. But if anything feels wrong, we run. We left through the kitchen. The cook barely looked up as we passed, too focused on flipping burgers to care about 5 people sneaking out the back door. The alley behind the diner was narrow and dark, lined with dumpsters and stacks of empty crates. It smelled like rotting food and something chemical I couldn't place. Atticus went first, moving slowly, his eyes scanning every shadow. I followed with my heart pounding. The alley was empty. See? I said. Nothing. Quiet. Atticus hissed. We moved toward the street, toward the faint glow of the streetlights beyond the alley's mouth. That's when I heard it. A scream. Muffled and distant but unmistakable. I stopped walking. Keep moving, Atticus said. Did you hear that? I said keep moving. The scream came again, louder this time. It was coming from the north side of the building, where Mireia had said they were watching. Someone's in trouble, I said. Not our problem. What if it's her? Then she made her choice. I stared at him. You're just going to leave her? We don't know if it's her. We don't know if it's real. It could be a trap. And if it's not? He didn't answer. The scream came a third time, and this time I heard words. Let go of me. It was Mireia. I was moving before I could think about it, running back down the alley toward the sound. Elijah! Stop! Atticus shouted. I didn't stop. I turned the corner and saw them. 3 men in dark tactical gear, the same kind I'd seen before. They had Mireia pinned against the wall, one of them holding her arms while another searched her bag. Where is he? The man searching her bag demanded. I don't know what you're talking about, Mireia said. Her voice was steady but I could see the fear in her eyes. Don't lie to us. We know you've been in contact with a dragon. I don't know any dragons. The man holding her arms tightened his grip and she winced. Last chance, he said. Tell us where he is. Go to hell. He raised his hand. And I moved. I didn't think about it, didn't plan it. I just ran at them, my body moving on instinct, and the heat in my chest exploded outward. My hands ignited. Not fully, not like before, but enough. Flames licked up my forearms, bright and hot and impossible to ignore. The men saw me and froze. Let her go, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was deeper, rougher, like something was changing in my throat. The man holding Mireia released her and stepped back, his hand going to the weapon at his belt. Target acquired, he said into his radio. Confirmed dragon at North Alley. I said let her go, I repeated. Stand down, the man said, raising his weapon. It wasn't a gun. It was something else. Something that hummed with electricity. I didn't stand down. I took a step forward and the flames on my arms grew brighter. The man fired. The bolt hit me in the chest and I felt electricity arc through my body, sharp and painful and wrong. My muscles seized and I fell to one knee. But the flames didn't go out. If anything, they burned hotter. I looked up at him and saw fear in his eyes. Good. I stood and the heat surged through me. Not just in my hands but everywhere. In my chest, my legs, my spine. I felt my body start to change, felt my bones shift and my skin ripple. Not fully. I couldn't fully shift. Not here, not now. But I could do enough. My hands weren't hands anymore. They were claws, long and sharp and covered in scales that gleamed like obsidian in the dim light. The men backed away. Jesus Christ, one of them whispered. I took another step forward and my voice came out as a growl. Leave. They ran. All three of them, scrambling over each other in their panic to get away. I stood there, breathing hard, watching them disappear around the corner. Then I looked down at my hands. They were still claws. I tried to change them back but they wouldn't respond. The scales were solid and real and I could feel the weight of them, the wrongness of them. Elijah. I turned. Maria was standing against the wall, staring at me. Not with fear, with something else, recognition. You're okay? I asked. My voice was still rough, still not quite human. I'm fine. She pushed off the wall and walked toward me. Are you? I looked at my hands again. I don't know. She reached out and touched one of my claws, her fingers light and careful. Breathe, she said quietly. Just breathe. I tried. Slowly, painfully, I felt the scales recede, felt my hand shift back to something human. It took maybe a minute. When it was done, I was shaking. How did you do that? I asked. Do what? Make it stop. She smiled. Just slightly. I didn't. You did. Atticus appeared at the end of the alley, his expression furious. What the hell were you thinking? He demanded. She was in trouble, I said. So you exposed yourself? Again? I couldn't just leave her. Yes, you could have. He looked at Maria. You need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere, she said calmly. This isn't a request. I don't care. They stared at each other. Lysandra and the others appeared behind Atticus, all of them looking tense and ready to run. We need to move, Lysandra said. They'll have reinforcements here in minutes. Then move, Maria said. I'll come with you. Absolutely not, Atticus said. You don't have a choice. She looked at me. They know I helped you. They'll come after me whether you take me with you or not. She was right. I could see it in Atticus's expression, the way his jaw tightened, the way his hands clenched into fists. Fine, he said finally. But if you slow us down, we're leaving you behind. Fair enough. We started moving, all of us together now, heading deeper into the maze of alleys and side streets. I walked next to Maria. Why did you help me? I asked. She glanced at me. Because I know what it's like to be hunted. What does that mean? She didn't answer right away. We turned another corner, then another, and the sounds of pursuit faded behind us. Finally, she spoke. You're not the only secret in this town, she said quietly. I stopped walking. What? She looked at me, her dark eyes steady and unreadable. I said you're not the only secret in this town. What are you? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's a conversation for later. Right now, we need to keep moving, Maria. Later, she said firmly, and she kept walking. I stood there for a second, my mind spinning, trying to process what she'd just said. Then Atticus grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. Move, he said. I moved, but I couldn't stop thinking about her words. You're not the only secret in this town. What did that mean? What was she? And why did I feel like I just walked into a trap I didn't even know existed? We didn't stop moving until we reached the old church on the east side of town. It was abandoned, half collapsed, with broken windows and a roof that looked like it might cave in at any moment. But it was shelter. And right now, that was all that mattered. We went inside and Torrin barricaded the door behind us. The interior was dark and cold and smelled like mildew and decay. Pews were scattered across the floor, some overturned, some broken. The altar at the far end was covered in dust and bird droppings. We'll stay here tonight, Atticus said. Tomorrow we figure out our next move. Everyone nodded. I sat down on one of the pews and put my head in my hands. My body ached. My hands were still trembling. And I couldn't stop replaying the moment when my hands had turned to claws, when I'd felt my body start to change. I'd almost lost control. If Maria hadn't been there, if she hadn't touched me, I don't know what would have happened. You okay? I looked up. Maria was standing in front of me, her arms crossed. No, I said. Yeah. She sat down next to me. Me neither. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked the question I'd been holding back. What did you mean? About not being the only secret? She looked at me, her expression unreadable. I meant exactly what I said. Are you a shifter? No. Then what are you? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached up and pulled something from around her neck. A necklace I hadn't noticed before, hidden under her shirt. It was a small pendant, silver, shaped like a crescent moon. She held it out to me. Do you know what this is? She asked. I shook my head. It's a ward, she said. Against magic? Magic? Not shifter magic. Real magic. The kind that comes from blood and bone and things that shouldn't exist. I stared at her. I don't understand. You will. She tucked the pendant back under her shirt. But not tonight. Tonight, we rest. Tomorrow, I'll explain everything. Maria. Tomorrow, she said firmly. And she stood and walked away, leaving me sitting there with more questions than answers. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. We took turns keeping watch, listening for sounds of pursuit, waiting for the hunters to find us. They didn't come. But I knew they would. Eventually. Because Naira had been right. If I truly was a dragon, the hunters would never stop coming. And now they knew exactly where I'd be. Because someone had told them. Someone who knew I'd go to help Maria. Someone who'd been encouraging me to check that location. I thought about Calder, about the way he'd been so friendly, so curious, about the way he'd asked where I was going after school, about the way he'd suggested I check out the diner on Main Street, the same diner where Maria had been, the same place where the hunters had been waiting. It couldn't be a coincidence. Could it? I sat there in the darkness, my mind spinning, trying to piece it together. And the more I thought about it, the more certain I became. Calder had set me up. He'd known exactly where I'd go. And he'd told the hunters. The question was why? What did he want? And what was he planning next? I didn't have answers. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't trust anyone. Not anymore. Not even the people who claimed they were trying to help me. Because in this town, everyone had secrets. And some of those secrets were deadly.